Welcome back, everyone. We've got an issue in Warren County, kind of complicated, concerning the Watershed Conference and the Watershed Coalition and the reimbursement policies and the purchasing protocols and whatnot. Well, recently, Mark Westcott was on and was kind of framing it and laying it out. And during that conversation, I realized that it would really benefit all of us if we had other perspectives on it. And lo and behold, Doug Irish responded and said, I'd like to come on and help frame this a little bit more for you and the viewers. So I really appreciate that, Doug.
I appreciate it too.
Welcome. Very nice to have you.
Thank you.
To have you here. Boy, there's a lot we could talk about here. Let's backtrack just a little bit. Long about 2001, during the Pataki administration, the Watershed Conference was formed to try to help protect Lake George, amongst other things, but to
Correct.
try to protect Lake George. As a result of that, the Watershed Coalition was formed with essentially Queensbury, the village of Lake George, and Bolton Landing participating in recommendations to how to preserve and maintain the health of Lake George.
Correct.
Okay, fast forward long about a year ago or so, we became aware of, and everyone became aware of, the fact that the state had done an audit, and that in that audit there was a lot of critical observations made that needed to be responded to, and before we knew it, that started to unravel, and there were a lot of questions being raised, again, about reimbursement policies, purchasing protocols, and whatnot. With that in mind, what's got you about this situation?
I think the concern that I have, for me, this goes back to when I first got on the board, which was about 3 years ago in 2014, and we started looking into why we weren't being reimbursed for some of these grants. A taxpayer brought the issue to the town board based on an issue at the county with them not getting reimbursed. So we started looking into it at the town. And 2014, former Councilman Bill Vanessa and myself started asking questions about where's the documentation for all of this information that we're supposed to be providing to the state. After that, the town supervisor started working with Dave Decker, who was the consultant that was hired. I believe his title is Director of the Watershed Coalition. He was responsible under an agreement that he had with each town that was involved to archive, keep track of all the records, produce all the records when needed, but none of the townships, well, I should speak to just Queensbury. Queensbury had none of that information. So we didn't have any invoices, we didn't have any contracts, we didn't have any receipts, we had nothing to do with any of the grants. When the state started looking at the grants for reimbursement, they wanted to see some documentation that the town didn't have. We sent a letter to Dave Decker, told him we needed all that information. The state was reviewing the contracts that we were responsible for, and the town is responsible for those, not Dave Decker. Under the contract with the state, all the money that's spent is the Queensbury taxpayers' responsibility, not Dave Decker. So the audit was done and completed in 2015. Unbeknownst to the town board, we never saw an audit. We never saw a response to an audit. We never saw any of that until about 3 weeks ago, when the sheriff's office contacted me and asked me if I had seen this Department of State audit. I went in and reviewed the document and immediately fired off an email to Supervisor Strau and said, why didn't we see this audit? I don't remember seeing it. Do you have a copy of it? His response was he didn't know what I was talking about. And that started us down another path with, why do we not have a copy of this audit? John continued to deny that he'd ever seen it. Lieutenant Stockdale from the sheriff's office got involved and clarified what I was looking for as far as the audit itself. And John continues to deny that he's ever seen this audit, even though he's got a response to it signed by him. So the audit itself is very critical of the town. There's not a single positive thing in the audit that I saw from the state as far as their findings go. They have recommendations on it, and the way these audits work is they come in, they do their audit, they send you the report, you respond with how you're going to mitigate the issues that they found, and then they issue a final report on whether your mitigation measures are adequate enough or if you need to do something different. We don't have that last piece yet, but based on the response that I did see from Supervisor Strau, there really wasn't anything in that response that they could say met the requirements for mitigation on the audit. So I think we still need to provide that information to them. We haven't done that yet, and we haven't even been able to get John to admit that he's got the audit or seen the audit or responded to the audit so that we could actually go back as a town board, which is our responsibility, and reply to the state on what we're going to do. There are a number of things that we didn't do throughout the entire process that goes back years. Bids were never let for jobs that were done up there that exceed the threshold for when that's supposed to be done. Proper documentation and receipts were never kept. There were some timesheets that are supposed to be tracked for the in-kind service or the 50-50 match that the towns can do. That was never documented, and as a matter of fact, the state threw all of those submissions out on one or two of the contracts and allowed the town and Dave Decker to submit some alternate proofs so that they could be reimbursed, one of which was a land purchase for the Gaslight Village project, which was used on multiple grants in order to get that 50-50 match. So,
well, it sounds to me like we've got, there are an abundance of issues here,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, you can say, and again, you know, Dave Decker has been indicted for fraud, right? And, you know, you've got state audit commissions coming in, and of course their job is to find fault. So there's that sort of idea that, you know, that's their job to do that. However, when things are raised that are critical and they may affect either purchasing protocols or they might affect reimbursements, well then, you know, everyone should have the opportunity, if you're serving on the town board, to take a look at this report, respond to it, and help answer some of those critical questions so that the whole process could be moved forward. As a result of the lapse of some of that, that's why I think they started looking at Dave Decker and thinking, seeing if there were any duplicate proposals being made and whatever, called double dipping or any of these other kinds of things. This will all be found out, but the whole idea of what was missed. Now, it sounds to me that John Strow should have, if he did have a copy of the report, certainly made it available to all of the other town board members. And then the other thing is that, you know, you're always subject to politics playing a role in this, Doug, right?
Sure.
And it doesn't seem political to me, yet I know some people are saying that it's political.
It's ironic that we really started looking into this in 2014. The fact that, you know, the audit issue came up this year didn't have anything to do with me. It didn't have anything to do with politics. It was basically timing based on when one of our local residents, Travis Whitehead, filed a complaint with the sheriff's office, and in the course of the investigation, the timing is what it is. The fact that people want to claim that this is all about politics because it's an election year, I happen to be the Queensbury chairman of the Republican Party, I happen to be friends with the candidate that's running against Supervisor Strow. Her husband is one of the investigators with the sheriff's office, very good investigators, qualifications as long as my arm. And the sheriff's office doesn't get involved in political fights.
No, they don't.
And, you know, for anybody to state that this is all about politics, it, to me, is just idiotic at this point. If this were April of next year, nobody would be saying this was political.
That's right.
But because this is an election
year. You know
year.
what bothers me about that also is that it takes the focus off the issue to me. You know, and I can't stand that. Yeah, I think a lot of you know that who watch this program. I just can't stand that.
Right.
So it sounds to me like long term, you had mentioned to me that maybe the responsibility for all of this shouldn't be on the backs of the taxpayers of Queensbury, that this should be bounced up to the county level.
I really think that if they want to continue with the Watershed Coalition, which again, the premise of it and the development of it was for good reason, to protect the lake, it really should be the counties involved. It should be Washington County, Warren County, Essex County, the three counties that encircle the lake. It should be up to the county board of supervisors to go after the grants if that's what they want to do, if they want to protect that lake. The individual towns that are around that lake shouldn't be the ones that put their taxpayer at risk by going after grants, because they either don't have enough resources to create all the checks and balances that are required,
right. Sure.
or
Or the finances.
Or, well, some of them don't have, which
That's
is why
right, sure.
Queensbury's been responsible for a majority of the large contracts that don't even occur within the boundaries of Queensbury. So we were, as a matter of fact, the one in Lake George was $3.2 million or something like that.
That's right.
That doesn't within the township of Queensbury, but our taxpayers were put at risk for that grant, paying out the money for that grant until we were reimbursed. And if we didn't get reimbursed, or we have to pay back any money because of some criminality that was involved in there, that's the Queensbury taxpayer. For while it will benefit us economically with tourism and everything like that, it's a direct impact to the taxpayer having to foot the bill for something that doesn't happen within the town of Queensbury.
Yeah, I agree with you on all those points. Plus a factor of the risk too, because the individual townships really just don't have the resources in the manpower,
True.
but probably don't have the financial resources. And if there is any fiduciary problems here, you're putting those taxpayers at risk. Well, Doug, I really appreciate you coming in.
I appreciate you
and
letting me
sharing
come
your
in.
opinion on this.
Thank you.
And really, I'd like to keep this conversation going. So if you have something to add to this, then please contact us. Doug, great to see you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See this interview again. You can head to our website, looktvonline.com.